Shalom from Jerusalem. This is TV7's Editor's Note. I'm Jonathan Hassan, and in today's edition, we have with us a good friend and a longtime member of the team here at TV7, no other than Brigadier General in Reserve, Doron Gavish. TV7 favorite is an understatement, but nonetheless, for those who do not know, he's the commander of the Israeli Air Force Task Force for Air and Missile Defense, formerly the chief of air and missile defense of the entire IDF, currently, of course, coordinating much with our brothers in war, Central Command, and other components in confronting the various threats that continue to, some say, being a nuisance, I say being a strategic challenge for the state of Israel that needs to be confronted sooner than later. But it's always a pleasure, General.
Pleasure to be here, Jonathan, and thank you for inviting me.
Absolutely. Before we start, I would like to take this opportunity to highlight TV7 Israel is a donation-based production here in Jerusalem, and all of our programs are supported by viewers just like yourself. So if you're blessed by the programs, the content that we produce here in Jerusalem with the many experts that join us to really dissect the complexities of the Middle East, of the broader world, and the various implications to the state of Israel, take this opportunity to support us with a donation. You can do so via our website at www.tv7israelnews.com. And with that, General Gavish, we had a eventful past week, which is an understatement. But I'd like to focus on some points, initially technical points, and we'll drive from there to the strategic. Let's start with the local arena of the state of Israel, Judea and Samaria. Just this past weekend, a terror cell in the vicinity of Ramallah city was arrested by the ISA in close cooperation with Israel's Special Operations Yamam unit. They were sitting on a arms manufacturing facility in order to create surface-to-surface capabilities, namely rockets, mortar shells, that would have been, of course, directed at the citizens of Israel as close as Tel Aviv. People don't always realize how narrow the state of Israel is. And in that context, they already tried to launch a rocket just last week. We're talking from the village of Naama, which raises many questions as to what can be done and to what degree is the state of Israel alert to those threats.
Well, indeed, Jonathan, but allow me to say a word just before I start, because you were mentioning that TV7 is based on donations and so on. So I want to thank you, really. I'm here, but I'm also a viewer of TV7 for everything that you're doing. I know that you are here in front of the camera, but I know that you're doing an amazing job behind the camera, preparing everything, making sure that everything is working. So thank you for you and for everything that you're doing. I think it is really super important, mainly in the time that we are at. Going back to your question, this is exactly what we mean when we say 7 fronts. This is really one of the fronts. We don't hear about it too much because the Central Command of Israel is super active, is proactive, I would say, and also our Shabak, secret organization, which are working there very, very strongly. So fortunately enough, most of what is happening there is being contained in the West Bank, but there is a lot going on. And what you've just mentioned, this is one of the threat which is more concerning. And this is the Hamas trying to penetrate also the Palestinian Authority, let's call it this way, their area, and they are challenging us, but also them. And basically, when it comes to rockets and missiles. They know how to do it. Unfortunately, we know that a lot of it is being done today within the Gaza Strip. So they took the same ideas, the same way of doing it by their own, and this is what they tried to do. And as you mentioned, Israel is very strong. It's very strong, but it's also very small.
Praise God for that.
Yeah, thanks God for that. And I always, when I talk with my American friends, I tell them that we can take Israel, we can put it into Michigan Lake, and it would sink. This is the size of Israel. So here too, it's very, very close. And if they would have this capability and they would launch a rocket toward Israel, that could be very dangerous. And so, yes, we see it. This is only one of the terrorist cells that we found there. We have to remember what happened in Jenin in the last year or two. A lot of other cells of terrorism. Israel is fighting there very, very hard. And the Palestinians won't shout it, or the Palestinian Authority won't shout it, but I think they are very thankful to the job that we are doing there, because otherwise they would have to deal with the Hamas. And we all remember what happened in the Gaza Strip and what the Hamas did to the Palestinian leaders that stayed over there. So it's a fight for us, and it's also a help to those Palestinians or the Palestinian Authority in the West Bank.
Indeed. Well, I always put things in context. And here, if we really draw back to 2014, when Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, the supreme leader of the Islamic Republic of Iran, published the 9 points on his Twitter account, 9 points to destroy Israel. One of those points happened to be that the West Bank, i.e., Judea, Samaria, the Jordan Valley, is the underbelly of the state of Israel, and therefore he encouraged all countries, all Islamic countries, the Muslim nations, to support the Palestinians by flooding the so-called West Bank with munitions, with cash, with everything that is necessary to fight Israel. And he highlights that it may be the same as we're doing in Gaza. So they want to create a second Gaza in Judea and Samaria, and to challenge Israel from an area that, just to put things into context, if you stand on the peak of a mountain just next to Jerusalem, which is one of the higher mountains, on the one hand you can see Jordan, on the other hand you can see the Mediterranean Sea. That's how narrow it is.
Right.
And that is something that most people don't realize. So when they call for a so-called two-state solution based on the 1967 lines, these days, the 1967 lines are indefensible for the state of Israel. It's as practical as that. So how do we explain, just ahead of, the United Nations General Assembly is going to take place this week, and we're going to hear, of course, from the New York conference, both the French Republic as well as Britain, Canada, Australia, Belgium, coming and declaring that they recognize a Palestinian state based on the 1967 borders. In practice, it is saying we support and recognize that this is what's going to happen, and this is going to be a challenge for Israel, irrespective of the fact that it means nothing on the ground.
Well, when we look at this declaration, there is few angles that we could look at it. The first one is that the timing. Because if they are so busy now in declaring and supporting the Palestinian people as they see it, how does the Hamas is looking at it? How does a terrorist organization that this is what they said that they want to do? They want to bring back the Palestinian issue into the front door, and this is, giving them a price, telling them, okay, you've been in the Gaza Strip, you've done what you've done, and here we give you a price. The price of this war that you started is the Palestinians. So I think it's a huge mistake. And most of the Israelis, or also those that support in Palestinian state, they know and they feel that it's a huge mistake. So this is, I think, the first thing. And the second angle is that it is different to say we understand that from their point of view, that there should be a Palestinian state, but in order to be a Palestinian state, there are few stages that they have to go through until they would be a Palestinian state. This is the second thing, because if you look, for example, on the Palestinians' textbook, the Palestinians are still supporting terrorist families. If you are a Palestinian, that you did a terrorist act in Israel, you killed Israelis, so you get pension from the Palestinians authority. Does it make sense? I mean, so we are declaring a country, we understand that the Palestinians should have their own country, but is what they mean? So they're supporting terrorism, and we see the textbooks which is talking about it's a very anti-Semitic what is written there. We see the textbook of the Nazis, and what the same textbook, unfortunately, we can see it on the West Bank. So you take all of those things, and from a micro perspective, let's see what happened in the Mediterranean in the last 20 years. We had Syria was a solid state, disseminated, and we have what we have today and everything that happened before, terrorist organizations. And so we saw what happened with the Palestinians in the Gaza Strip. We saw what happened in Iraq. So unfortunately, all around us, we see that we start with good intention, we, the West, but we see where it ends up. So if they want a state for the Palestinians, there is a way to go. We talk about corruption. We just talked about education, dismelting them from weapons, and a lot of other things. And so I think this is it's a big mistake on behalf of the West world. It's a prize for terrorism, this declaration.
Well, I will say, in all fairness, they're very good Palestinian people. It's, many people say it's black and white. This is the way the world tries to sell this story. And it's not black and white. There are great people there who have very good Israeli friends, and vice versa. But what it comes down to, and this is something that people don't fully comprehend, the international community aspires to force upon Israel and the Palestinians a two-state solution. Prior to October 7th of 2023, there were more Israelis, and I'm talking about a wide gap in between, more Israelis that sought for a two-state solution than Palestinians. Let's keep in mind that when the legislative council elections, when Hamas won in the Gaza Strip and Judea and Samaria and elsewhere, they won the election. And they didn't win by a large margin, like some claim. They won by merely 2 to 3% more than Fatah, their main rivals.
Mm-hmm.
But if you look at the ticket that represented a so-called two-state solution, the ticket of peace with Israel, which was spearheaded by the then Prime Minister Salam Fayyad, who was regarded as somebody who could bring the Palestinian people into a new age of prosperity. He was the deputy head of World Bank and knew the inner workings of the global elites. He only secured 2.41% of the Palestinian public's support. Now, of course, it has to do with the clan construct, the tribal constructs, and the various complexities of the Arab-Palestinian street. But one thing is clear: the Palestinian street is not keen on a two-state solution. Irrespective of what people say and the narrative spouted by the Palestinian Authority, the Palestinian Authority's own officials who were appointed there, backed by specific clans, were brought into power by clans who do not want a two-state solution. They do not want to live side by side with the State of Israel on the basis of peace and security for both peoples, as is promoted by the international community time and again. What can be done in order to draw this reality to the attention of others who do not have a stake in the game?
You're right, Jonathan. I mean, I've heard President Clinton. I think it was in a statement or not so long ago, and he told about what happened with Arafat,
Right.
and he said we gave the Palestinians 96% of the West Bank, 4%
Land
of
swaps.
exactly between Israel and the Palestinians. We allowed them to choose which 4% they want. Half of Jerusalem or the East Jerusalem were theirs,
The actual Jerusalem, including the old city.
including the old city.
No.
And what was the answer?
No.
So, we have this statement, unfortunate statement, that the Palestinians never missed an option to miss an option. And this is again.
I think that statement,
Okay.
that Palestinians never miss an opportunity to miss an opportunity,
Okay.
is inherently wrong, since they don't seek to
A real
draw on that
opportunity.
opportunity. I sat once in a dinner in a Palestinian city. It was just next to Ramallah, and there were Palestinian leaders in that conversation. And while we were speaking there, and we were speaking about all kind of different issues, at some point, one of the guys said, "Jonathan, we're the majority. We're the majority. Not maybe in the land here, but our birth rate is higher. The whole Middle East is predominantly Islamic, and at some point we'll tilt the scales." And that is something that they believe genuinely is going to happen sooner than later. So how can you convince this type of narrative that is being inseminated into the minds of every Palestinian leader that this is the case, that they should give up even 1 inch of land? Because they say, well, the 96%, which you're referring to, or the 100% that you're referring to, is merely 23% of the 100% that was promised under UN Security Council Resolution 244, excuse me,
Yeah.
and 181 and 182, and they keep on. The whole narrative plays into a certain discourse that does perpetuate a Palestinian-Israeli conflict that has a return in the business mindset of billions upon billions of dollars, and is actually allowing people to have great salaries all over the world. I mean, Western civilization has more than several thousand, I think it was roughly 5,000 NGOs dealing with the Palestinian issue. You know how many jobs that is?
Yeah, you're right. There's a lot of jobs. There is a lot of corruption that we all know that it's there. So it's a challenge, and you ask yourself, all those countries. I mean, why exactly are they doing it? Is it for the Palestinians, or is it for their own purpose? Is it really that they are looking inside and then trying to see, okay, maybe it would help us entering within with our new voters. Let's put it this way. So that could be another, of course, angle of why they're doing what are they doing. We always ask this question. I mean, what is this obsession with Israel? I mean, we talked about it when there was the starving campaign, which we all know that it was a fake campaign led by the Hamas, but everyone jumped on it, and we asked the question again and again: do we have starvation in Yemen? The answer is yes. Sudan? The answer is yes. What happened in parts of Syria? But the world was quiet about
Everybody
it.
knows, but the IPC does not investigate those territories because there is no political mandate for that.
Yeah, so it is very complex, challenging. I think, it's a Sisyphic work that we have to do with those leaders to bring them here, to invest on them. I think that one of the things that it's frustrating, but we have to do it. We cannot allow ourselves to say, okay, they are there and we are here and we can do everything by ourselves. No, unfortunately, it's not the situation. This is a global world. We are part of a global world. There is so many good things for Israel to bring to this world from a technological point of view, high tech, really good things, medical and others. So I think that we have to really put a lot of effort in bringing them. I think that we don't explain ourselves good enough. We don't have even organization who is doing it within our government or within our establishment. And this is something that we have to invest more on really explaining. It is hard, but we must do it. Thank God that we have the United States and the current government, which is supportive toward Israel, which I think understands exactly the same things that we see. And the Arab nations around us, there are things that they would say on the table, and there are understandings under the table. And we didn't see them supporting, at the end of the day, the Palestinians or for sure the Hamas so much. There's a lot of declaration. But they could do a lot for the Palestinians, and why they didn't do it, why they didn't bring Palestinians to their own country. So, there is also a lot of politics, hypocrisy, which is part of what we are seeing here.
Well, we can always raise the quantities of donations coming in from Europe and the United States in contrast to countries here in the Middle East. And I'm talking about countries like Egypt and Saudi Arabia even, and Qatar. Everybody speaks about the millions of dollars that went into Gaza. Well, it's not that much.
Yeah.
That is something that people don't realize. It's just something that they're willing to do in a corrupt way, as opposed to Europe and the United States, even though Europe, under the current institution in Brussels, has been lacking transparency, and that is really an understatement, dealing with taxpayers' funds that, this needs to be investigated by the authorities and by independent organizations.
But then you ask yourself, who is the UN today? Who is the United Nations exactly?
Well, I'm talking about the European Union. The United Nations is a different story altogether. You mentioned Yemen, and we're dealing with, we don't have very much time for this, but nonetheless, it's important. They keep on launching unmanned aerial vehicles, ballistic missiles. The other day, I was walking with my two little boys, my wife and myself, and we were walking into the bomb shelter after they just went to sleep. And my son tells me in my ear, I'm okay. And you just keep in your mind, for us, we're used to those things. I remember myself as a young boy, relatively, dealing with the Scuds coming from Iraq at the time. But right now, you look at the reality and you tell yourself, okay, how long is this sustainable for? And shouldn't we go on the offensive a lot stronger?
Well, this is probably the main question that is being asked today on the decision-making tables is what is the next step with the Houthis. Thanks God we have a very good defense, and one of the reasons that your son feels like this is because the vast majority of missiles that are being shot and UAVs that are being shot toward Israel, the vast majority of them are being intercepted. So, in Tel Aviv, it is in such a point that people are asking themselves, should we go to the shelter? Yes, no, because they feel so confident with it. So we always tell them, you have to go to the shelters because there are debris.
It's not just in Tel Aviv, it's everywhere.
It's everywhere, yeah. So please, for those who hear us, go to the shelter. Don't take a chance. It is not hermetic. But then the offensive, it's really, what we would have to do. We would have to go strongly on the offensive. We saw a few weeks ago that Israel is always thinking of how do we hit, how do we strike the Houthis. We strike their government, which was a very successful operation. But we have to remember, we have a war in Gaza. We are in the next level of it. So I'm not sure that for Israel now this is the time to be in full-scale war in few different areas. That's a main question that we would have to answer.
Absolutely, and the ancient Roman wisdom always indicates don't open a new front before the old one is concluded. There is a very calculated approach here in Israel, and it is evident. Everybody sees that, at least whoever looks sees that quite clearly. We don't have very much time left, and still there is one point that I'd like to ask you, since we wanted to ask also about the Iranians testing new ballistic missiles. That is something that is happening all the time, but nonetheless, the Iron Beam ending its R&D stage.
Yes, just last week it did. We did have the last, I would say, the R&D stage, and now it is ready for the next point, which is the next phase, which is operationally being introduced into the defense of Israel. It would be done by the end of the year. During the last 2 years, we saw a lot of things that happened for the first time. First interception in space, Aegis, Arrow, THAAD, all those things, and this is another, this time, pure Israeli innovation. And we have to remember that laser, this is something completely new into the warfare arena worldwide.
And it's part of the multi-layered system.
Exactly.
You had the privilege of integrated the Iron Dome.
Exactly.
Was Israel's first system, fully made operationally.
Mm-hmm.
Now this enters, and it is one of the 5 layers.
It would be integrated together with the Iron Dome for the beginning, because they are plus minus on the same areas. And at the tactic level, the battery commander would have the decision or the option, or within his basket of answers, to go with the laser or with the kinetic interception. So it's very important that we are now.
It also adds, though, a new dimension, the mortars, right? Which is very significant.
You're right. The very short range, and also the small hovering UAVs and all those things.
It's amazing. Well,
so we are looking forward for the laser.
Praise God that it will give us. You always say there's no hermetic. At some point, there will be hermetic defensive.
Hope so.
We pray for that. But General Doron Gavish, thank you so very much for taking your time.
Thank you, Jonathan.
Thank you. And I'd like to thank all of you at home as well. Until our next edition of TV7's Editor's Note, I'm Jonathan Hassan from here in Jerusalem. Shalom.